I call this Planning Commission meeting to order. Would everyone please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, I want to welcome everyone who's here tonight and everyone who's watching us at home. And before we get started, I want to thank the city staff for our new equipment. So we're all high-tech now, and so you all see us playing. We're actually not playing games up here. We're actually working. Briefly, I'll go over our agenda for this evening. First is the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes from the July 22nd meeting. And then we have a site plan design review for the Blue Springs Townhomes. And then we'll go on to other business, and we'll be finished. And that being said, we'll first move to the consent agenda. And any comments on the minutes or motions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move that we approve the consent agenda for this evening.
I have a motion.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. And we'll move right on to our item on tonight, which is the Blue Springs Townhomes, and Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. Before you this evening is a request from Hickok Dibble to construct four-unit townhomes for a total of 16-unit townhome development on a 1.9-acre lot located at the southeast corner of Northeast Artie Mize Road and Northeast Sunnyside School Road, essentially just south, across the street from Walmart. The property is zoned MF14 and was before you a recent meeting to get that rezoning, or get the zoning changed to the current MF14 standard. Again, it is a 1.9-acre property, looking at four townhome units totaling, four buildings, four townhome units per each, total 16 units on site, as well as a leasing office, swimming pool, and a maintenance building and pool house. The property will also require, beyond the site plan design review this evening, will require a preliminary and a final plat prior to proceeding with building permits for construction. You may see at the end of the staff report, the staff does recommend approval of the project, and there are 19 conditions. A large number of them will relate to some of the design being proposed, as well as the site development itself as it moves forward through the platting process. I do want to highlight a certain number of specific issues with the site plan design review. First of all, page 4 of 13, access. This is one of the first developments to go through the multifamily design guidelines, design standards in the UDC, and so kind of put to the test some of the standards in terms of applicability, especially with this development as it is essentially is functioning as an expansion of the Brookwood townhomes to the south and east of the subject property. In discussions with the applicant and with Public Works, because Northeast 5th Street acts as a primary drive for the surrounding multifamily residences, connecting Artie Mize and Sunnyside School Road, staff has concluded that allowing development access onto 5th Street, which is what one portion of the code standards is recommending, would not satisfy, again, that section. But the preference, again, talking with Public Works Department and Ben McCabe is here as well, city engineer, to answer any questions you might have on this portion, would be to minimize access drives off of Northeast Sunnyside School Road and Northeast Artie Mize Road, and to provide access to 5th Street instead. And I can zip along to a map so we can better reference point here. Here's the site map itself. So looking at portion of the reference section with access, talking about a standalone development, not, irrespective of its context, would normally be looking at trying to pull access off of Sunnyside School Road as a collector, or Artie Mize Road as a collector. But because Fifth Street to the east, which services multifamily to the east and then multifamily to the south, essentially is acting as its own type of access to Artie Mize, to that collector, staff agreed that this is more appropriate connection using Fifth Street instead of directly onto Artie Mize, which actually would almost not even fit the standards for separation distance with a drive in the middle of Sunnyside School Road and Fifth Street. And then over here is, to the west, is single-family residential, so having connection to Sunnyside School Road would not make any more sense than having it to Fifth Street. So, long story short, again, not to belabor the point, but staff is recommending that, and is agreement with the applicant, that Fifth Street is a more appropriate connection, utilizing this, even though it is more of a local residential street, as the overall Brookwood Townhomes connection to Artie Mize. If that makes sense. So sorry to kind of belabor that point, but just want to give you kind of the thought process and the discussions we had with where connection and access should be for this portion of the expansion of Brookwood Townhomes. Moving on, back here to the staff report. Next section I want to talk about is on page 7, talking about landscaping. With this, applicant is not, as it stands, in compliance with the parking lot landscaping, would need to shift some plant units around in order to meet the minimum standard. As you can see that here, they're short 20 plant units. Staff is confident that they can shift some of that around. I'll jump back to that site plan. They can shift some of these units around to accommodate, primarily in this area, parking lot landscaping, and in this area as well. Again, they're proposing some more innovative open space in terms of rain garden at this area, in this parking area here. The detention is to the southwest here of the site. And again, they do have a good buffer landscaping here along the south, and then of course along Artie Mize and Sunnyside School Road. So just looking to shift some of this around to kind of beef up the parking lot landscaping, so it's not just a bare asphalt in this area, but a little bit more landscaping than what they're showing here. Utilities, one thing did want to mention, Fire District, CJC has reviewed this as well. They're agreeable to this kind of hammerhead design, but did request an additional fire hydrant be requested to be installed in the development as well. With that, building design is the other section I want to talk about on page 9. Staff is recommending some modifications to what's already being proposed. I'll jump to the elevations that are shown here. Staff recommends that, and has discussed with the applicant over several occasions, trying to make some enhancements to what is essentially the rear of the building, the rear elevation here, back elevation as it's labeled. Make some enhancements, since those are the primary areas that are facing the public right-of-way. If you can see here, again, those are the areas that are facing Sunnyside and are facing Artie Mize. So to do some enhancements, and some of the recommendations that we're putting in here include that have more of an appearance of a main door rather than just a sliding door that you normally see on a patio. Possibly doing some side lights, additional windows on, even like a French door or something like that. So trying to enhance this beyond just a standard sliding door to a patio. As you saw in the photos that they included, also adding some, let's skip through here, adding some shutters like they've done in this example, and give it more. Again, this is a pretty nice patio design, but try to make it appear as more of a front entry with a walkway to the public sidewalk. So that's staff's recommendation as one of the conditions, because that is the main elevation that you'll be seeing from public right-of-way. It's not this one as much as it is this one. With that, wanted to note again, there are 19 conditions. Again, a lot of them have to do with things I just mentioned, as well as some of those with plating, construction drawings, as-built, some of the requirements for stormwater detention, bonding and such for public infrastructure. So a lot of, as they get along with the construction side of the process, fairly standard conditions. So don't be too overwhelmed with the number of conditions, but again, it's a lot of those leading into the construction phase and the plating phase. And then again, some of those, as I've already mentioned, with landscaping, with the building design, and some of those with, again, with lighting and with the fire hydrant and things of that sort. So with that, again, staff is recommending approval with those number of conditions, and I'll stand for any questions.
Are there any questions for staff? Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Allen, in regards to recommendation number 3, the parking located along the private drive shall be limited to one side in order to maintain emergency access into the development at all times. How will that be enforced?
I will defer
Since
to...
it's a private drive.
That's a very good question. I'll defer to the applicant, but I believe we did talk about painting, striping, and signage along there. And again, we'll defer to the applicant, but also to CJC in terms of how they would like to see that marked. We've done that with other private drives as well, and we've actually gone back and I know met with some developers and looked at some alternatives for signage, fencing, things like that to try to minimize parking, quote, violations on private drives. So we're confident the developer will adhere to that.
If it's signed, will the police department be able to enforce that then on a private drive?
I apologize. It won't be the police department because it's a private drive and it's on private property. It's the development management that has to do it, and if it becomes a problem, then they will have to post towing signs and they will actually have to tow. It rarely ever gets to that point.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Wallace.
It might be in here on this plan here. The pool area itself, is there going to be, what type of fence is going to be around the pool area and that type of, what's it going to look like?
That's a good question. I don't think we have information on the pool fence, but perhaps the applicant will have information on that now. But we don't, I think we have standards per se on pool fencing, but we would expect something, wrought iron, something of that sort, like we normally see, since it is has a good public visibility. But there's some buffering with landscaping as well in that area. Good question. I'll defer to the applicant for that.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Sanders.
I may be a little confused here. Are you proposing, suggesting that sidewalks are connected from RDMIs, basically people's patios individually?
A walkway, yes, from the sidewalks to the, like you would normally see. I mean, there are a lot of, in Old Town in particular as well, you see walkways, just a narrow, 3-foot walkway from a sidewalk to the front porch or patio. Again, it's a recommendation from staff just to try to enhance the appearance from what it's shown currently to make it appear more of a have that front door appearance versus the back of the building. But again, that's just a recommendation from staff, and we're certainly willing and open to look at other options for that.
Any other questions? Yes,
Mr. Allen, my question is that the fire department's looked at this. I see where they say they had a fire hydrant. My question is I guess it's a question, is that you're telling me a fire truck or an ambulance is going to pull in there, do what they have to do, and then back out?
There is that hammerhead, as you see here.
Right.
The impression I got from CJC, without putting words in their mouths since they're not here, is that because there is access there's public access on all 3 sides, that would be the primary way to fight the fire, again, from Artie Mize, Sunnyside School Road, or Fifth Street. But again, they do need to have some interior access to the front doors and, again, the more interior part of the buildings. But yes, I don't have any specific comments or recommendations from CJC specifically, beyond just what you see here.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Banks?
I do have a question. You were talking about sidewalks from the Artie Mize, maybe Sunnyside School
In
Road?
Sunnyside, yeah,
To their back door?
essentially.
Wouldn't you think that, this is just my consideration, that the people would have a tendency to park there to go to their property? And then now we get into another situation with parking?
That could be, I'm not sure what the parking restrictions are on Sunnyside or Artie Mize at this point.
I
You mean
just had a
street
concern
parking?
That would just be a tendency for them to park, run in, and then now we have another situation. I could see if we were
parking on
having a
Sunnyside, yeah,
sidewalk
I see what you're saying.
from the side of from their driveway around to the back to give it, and then maybe even a little privacy fence around their patio to offset the look versus a sidewalk that just
Sure.
invites the parking situation.
Again, one of the an emphasis of the multifamily design standards is to look at connectivity,
Right.
interior and exterior. And with there being a lack of any kind of exterior walkways to Artie Mize or Sunnyside, which have or will have as part of this development sidewalks, public sidewalks, staff was looking at an alternative to have just individual, walking paths from each individual unit to those public sidewalks.
Just a concern.
Sure.
Yes.
Mr. Allen, have you had an opportunity to look at the elevation drawings or building materials for the sales office, pool house? Will it be of similar materials, will it be similar requirements as far as the four-sided?
We understand there are similar materials, but there is not a requirement that they be the same. But we are understanding they are, so I'll defer to the applicant for some more details on that, but that's a good question as well.
Anything else? Mr. Allen, on the, talking about the sidewalks and accessibility, is because this is a private street, is that why we do not have any sidewalks, interior sidewalks?
Yes, and it was one point of conversation we did have with the applicant on several occasions in terms of how to, you can see there's a sidewalk actually along here, I should say.
No, there's actually, it stops right there at the edge of the, before you get to the first townhouse.
Well, there's sidewalk from this
There's
point.
sidewalk across
Right, from Fifth Street across the sales office pool house.
and it stops
This
right there.
wa- No, it continues.
It stops right there, according to the drawing.
No, actually,
No, it goes between the.
it does continue
Yeah, yeah.
up to this
If you blow
point.
it up, you can see a little.
I am blowing it up.
I can try to,
Maybe okay, I see,
you see, yeah, it's difficult because there's a little bit of, you see some of the topo lines are getting kind of in the way as well. Yeah, it does continue, yeah, proposed 4-foot, sorry, I can zoom this in a little bit better, to see it better, yeah, proposed 4-foot concrete walk. So there's one over to Fifth Street from this point, all the way around. But again, staff was just looking at some other alternatives, if there's something better to try to connect up to Artie Mize, we recommended that, same with Sunnyside. But again, there's some topo issues with Sunnyside, so we were looking primarily at Artie Mize, which is why you see, preference for some, backyard or faux front yard.
See, I would rather
Patios.
have a sidewalk that would come in front of the two on the hammerhead, and that could just go straight down to Artie Mize.
Correct.
Yes, okay. That was one suggestion we had. Again, there are a lot of different options to look at.
That would be access into the interior
Right.
from Artie Mize without going up to somebody's door,
Yeah,
Right.
make it more walkable.
I know that was one item we had discussed, so I'll defer to the applicant in terms of what their preferences
With
might
the
be.
private street, how much leeway do we have on sidewalks and requiring them and not requiring them?
Sure.
Thank you for that.
Yes, as much as you'd like. Yes, I don't think, there aren't any, again, it is, more- I don't mean to make light of the fact that, again, the connectivity, interior and exterior, is important in the multifamily design standards. And that's why we can recommend a 5-foot sidewalk, because there's a large number of people, and we expect it to be heavily used. Here, they're proposing a 4-foot sidewalk, which is pretty standard, and I think agreeable. Staff was agreeable to that, connecting over to Fifth Street. That seemed to make sense, but there's certainly opportunity for additional connections, which is why we were kind of just running through some different options for how can we get connections for each individual tenant or owner to our demise in particular. And so if that's certainly one option. It could be a 4-foot sidewalk, could be a 5-foot sidewalk, could be along that whole hammerhead, could be a whole full circular walkway. But again, also trying to keep in mind the context of the fact that it's essentially acting as an expansion of the existing townhome area as well. So keep in mind the current standards and how it also plays in the context with the existing residential, multifamily residential around there. So a lot of different options, which is why I know the applicant was also wrestling with the same.
And the rest of the subdivision is all on public streets, right?
Yes.
Yes, Ms.
I just want to clarify, so are we talking that there is going to be a sidewalk in the interior or not?
There is, as it stands here, just this 4-foot sidewalk from Fifth Street, from the 5-foot sidewalk being proposed on Fifth Street. Interior here is 5 foot along the parking lot area and the pool, and then down to 4 feet all along this way.
And it stops right.
It stops, and we did talk about having some painted cross markings to get across, so folks, at least in this unit, this building can, just jump across to get to Fifth Street, but knowing full well that people are going to cut through here. They walk through the shrubs or the trees, they're going to cut through from their backyard and go, I'm going to run over to Walmart, be right back, Mom. And, they try to facilitate that with the design as much as possible. Either through one, a more of a shared interior sidewalk circulation option or individual walkways out to our demise. And since they had not provided a larger, multi-unit connection to our demise, we are simply coming forward with a suggestion, perhaps individual connections. So that's why we came up with that recommendation.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Sanders.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
I, again, claim ignorance here. How is trash service for this facility? Is it individual? Is it, there's a collection site?
We'll defer to the applicant, but there was not specific information given in terms of trash enclosure, and which is why we did state, looking here, on page 6, no outdoor trash receptacle was provided for on the plans, and again, they are required to be completely screened if there is one. Again, I'll defer to the applicant to acknowledge where that might be, if anywhere. Otherwise, it may just be unit by unit, which is certainly possible
Yeah.
and an option. There's no requirement that it be a group trash unit.
Anything else?
I guess that brings
Sure.
up a good question. Then are the requirements to construct the private street the same as if you were going to construct a public street? As far as handling those type of trash trucks?
No. No. Taking my cue from the city engineer.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Mr. Wallace?
You never should have even given me this thing to play with here. What is a rain garden?
I'll again defer the applicant, for perhaps has some drawings of that, but I know the city of Kansas City has been promoting for the last number of years individual rain gardens for homeowners. Essentially, it's a smaller, kind of more manicured detention for stormwater. It can have more of native plantings, grasses, wildflowers, things of that sort. So something a little bit more visually appealing than just a concrete pit to hold water. And usually, again, on a smaller scale, you can kind of see that here. The rain garden is shown in a much smaller proportion to the overall detention for the rest of the subdivision, so. But that's again, that's part of the multifamily design standards, is to look at, some innovative use of open space, active and passive open space, and that was the applicant's attempt to provide a little bit of that beyond just a grassed area or, again, a larger detention basin that really doesn't have much visual appeal at times.
Anything else?
I do have a question. You were talking about the trash, it's going to be up to each individual tenants possibly, we don't know for sure?
We'll find out from the applicant, hopefully, yes.
Because otherwise, if the roads aren't, they do not have to be of the same standards as the city, then will a trash truck be able to get in there and turn around and come out since it's not going to be a receptacle?
We presume so, considering how the drive was designed with, again, the hammerhead and even the fire district in mind.
So the trash truck will have to
Assuming-
back out?
Or could make that kind of T turn or Y turn through that hammerhead in this area.
So we need to ask the applicant if they've discussed that with.
Yes,
trash
that's a good
service.
question. I'm not sure if that has been decided, but again, that's, if they do have a common area for trash collection, it would have to be screened. That's a code standard, yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, thank you, Mr.
All right,
Allen.
thank you.
I guess we're ready now. Would the applicant like to come forward and make their presentation?
Dan Foster with Schlegel and Associates, 14920 West 107th Street, Lenexa, Kansas. Lots of good questions, and we worked quite diligently with the staff, and actually what I have to show you is first time I've ever had this situation where I've gotten to the meeting and the revised plan that we submitted on August 6th is not the plan that you guys are reviewing. So we made a lot of changes based on the staff comments, and I want to show you this plan because it does address a lot of those things, and I'm not sure how we got to this point. Let me turn on. It's basically the same plan, except for we rotated one building and we made some adjustments to the sidewalk network. So as you can see on this plan, Building 2 is rotated 90 degrees. Part of that was to take what used to be the back of the building and turn it sideways to Artie Mize, which then also allowed us to extend this sidewalk all along the front here, up this drive and connect to Artie Mize. That's how we're providing that extra connection that the staff requested. We really feel like it's not a good thing to connect sidewalks to the back patio areas. Those are people's private area. You're going to be encouraging, and I would ask you to talk to the police here, encouraging general public to walk up to somebody's back door, basically, which seems like a huge safety concern to us. They are right that we could not make the connection to Sunnyside School Road, again, because of kind of the terrain and topography there and utility connections and all the things that are going on there. So as an alternative, we turned that sidewalk and took it over to Artie Mize. The general layout of the street is identical to what the plan you saw. This plan actually meets the new fire code. So most cities have adopted the new fire code. I'm not clear if Blue Springs has or not, but there are 3 different options that are part of that as fire access. One of them is this hammerhead, and it is in the 2012-2013 IFC code as an allowed access, and this has been designed exactly to the T, to the width, to the lengths of those throats, to everything, to be able to allow a fire apparatus vehicle to drive in there, turn, back up, and go back out frontwards and not have to go out backwards. So this is actually a design that we're using on some other projects as well and other communities within the Kansas City metro area. That design, because the fire truck is kind of the largest vehicle, so to speak, will also accommodate the trash truck, other emergency vehicles, moving trucks, all of those things that will come along with this. As far as the trash collection goes, it's individual containers in the existing subdivision, and that, in the existing development, and that's what we're proposing to do here as well, as individual and allow that trash truck to come in. The question on the road, yes, we do not have to build it per city street standards, but we're going to build it to support that trash truck, because ultimately, we don't want to end up having to redo a road, several years down the road because it gets destroyed by a trash truck. Also, that access right there being a fire truck, they're going to want us to have a pavement there to support that fire vehicle as well. As far as the staff stipulations on the landscaping, when we got the staff report, that was kind of the first time we had seen that particular comment. There's no problem with us adjusting the plant material around to meet those requirements and that type of thing. We've done, how closely you looked at this, but one of the things that we've also done to kind of minimize any potential, to kind of soften the view, I guess, to Sunnyside School Road, the single family, and to Artie Mize, is that we've met the plant count requirements for the code, and a lot of those are evergreen type of plant material, so that when you look at it, you're going to have this kind of more softening look to it. It's not just going to be street building, no trees in between. So we've done those types of things in order to be able to try and reduce increase or improve the visual appearance of that back area. And that was the other reason why we turned that building 2, was to try and get, so that as you're driving down Artie Mize, you got more front doors, and building 1 is actually pulled forward. If you notice, the setback here is actually in excess of what is required by code or allowed by code. We've actually pulled that up to give us a little more green space there. These buildings are also offset. This one, building 4 is pulled forward. Building 3 is pretty close to being right on the setback just because of the way the drive configuration works. One of the other things that Scott didn't mention that's in the code has to do with garage doors. And one of the things that we did is we actually offset the garages here, where this garage and this garage are actually 2 feet in front of the other one, so that you don't just have those fronts lined up. You've got that kind of offset to kind of create a little bit more interest in that building. As far as comments on the architecture, I just talked to Rick. He's also here with Hickok Diable. And he's fine with some of the, working with the staff on some of the actual architectural enhancements and things like that. And I think with that, we would agree to, working with staff on these comments and as it's stipulated in here, and we'd be happy to answer any questions or in case I missed something. I think I caught them all. But
Do we have any questions for the applicant?
I do have a question.
Ms. Banks?
Is there a problem as to why you haven't considered putting a sidewalk in front of 3 and 4? So
Well-
they could also run, it's going to be kind of an isolated little area, and that'd be a great walking area, and yet they don't have a sidewalk?
Well, what we were looking at is that they would be able to cross to this sidewalk here to get up to Artie Mize, instead of having another sidewalk along the front here and allowing that to be a little more green space. It's no different than if you're on a residential, single-family street and you got sidewalk on one side and sidewalk not on the other. The folks who don't have it always cross the street to get to the sidewalk. It's the same scenario here where these folks would cross to get to this sidewalk and then make a loop back around through the entire development and back. And that also gives them access to the pool complex. We try to minimize the amount of pavement and try and make it more green.
Any other questions?
Just a question in regards to the sales office and the pool house. What type of, is it 1-story, I assume?
It's 1 story with a basement, mainly for storage. I don't know how familiar you are with the existing development, but they're currently have their sales leasing out of one of the, I think the very first building there, and that was kind of the intent, was to move them out of that space into their own dedicated space. And then this particular development doesn't really have that recreational amenity, and so that's the pool. The materials will be similar to what we're doing. We just haven't come up with a design on that yet, and it will actually be You know, it'll have the restrooms, and it'll have the sales leasing office, and then there'll be a small little area that, it's all one building, that we're going to use for the maintenance types of things that we need to be able to maintain the apartments, so.
I do have one more question.
Ms. Banks?
Since you're talking about trash trucks in the streets, I don't know, I'm hung up on some of these things.
That's okay.
Because, are you gonna have it restricted to a certain trash company, or are you gonna have where they can pick their own, and there's one every day?
No, they actually pay, the owners pay for the trash company to
Okay.
come, and so then it's individual containers.
Okay,
That's how they
I
do it.
just
So it's
need-
not like you're going to have 5 or 6 different companies.
Because I have
or
one,
whatever.
a different one every day of the week down my street, so I just wondered.
No, it'll all be done at one time,
Okay.
in and out.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, I appreciate the fact that you're trying to match up the existing buildings. And I say that kind of heavy-hearted because I hate this design. There are too many of them around town. Was there any opportunity to look at doing something different, just to make it more attractive? I mean, this design is just, I'm sorry, I think it's just awful.
Well, we've done some, I mean, this is a little different materials, I think, than the other one. I mean, it's similar, but not exactly the same. But when you're talking about 4 buildings in a complex, it's just kind of an economy of scale of being able to, you know, have a similar plan so that somebody doesn't go in and to say, well, okay, this is a little bit different than over here, and you know what I mean? In other words, it's all uniform, and so it makes it easier to maintain and be consistent with the maintenance instead of having to have a lot of different. Plus, I think if you had something totally different here that was still part of that, it might stand out a little bit more and look a little odd because it wasn't relating to the other pieces, so.
I would think it would make it more attractive, actually, but that's just me. Yeah, like I said, I understand what you're doing. I just, especially if this wasn't related to those other ones, I would be really vocal about this design. It's just, it's tired.
I understand.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I have one more.
Yes.
On your sheet A100, you were saying that the garages were offset
Uh-huh.
a minute ago, but on this sheet doesn't show that the garages are
Yeah,
offset.
and I'm assuming that's the same problem, because if you notice right here, where this has been clouded, came with that whole set of revisions that was requested by the staff, that we figure out a way to kind of create that offset between the 2 sets of doors in order to meet the new code. And so we did that, and we were able to kind of shift things around just a little bit on the site from previously to be able to accomplish that, so. And even the elevations have been updated to reflect that as well, so.
Could I have a copy of all of those
You
drawings,
may,
please?
you can have all of these.
Thank you.
Yes.
And a question for staff, do we need to specify that we're approving that and not this?
I think that's assumed with what's being presented here, but if there's a specific date on there that we can reference?
8/6 of 13
Okay.
is when we submitted.
That would probably be
Yes.
the preferred. Again, yeah, for some reason, there's a mix in your staff report. We have the updated color elevations and things of that sort, but somehow the floor plan and then the site plan were the older versions. So we'll have to see how that occurred, but yeah, for consistency's sake, we can all refer to those as
You said that was 8/16?
8/6 of
8/6.
13, yeah, is
Okay.
what the revision date was
Okay.
on there.
Okay. Any other questions? Guess not.
Thank you.
Bring it back up here for discussion on the record. Yes, sir.
I think there's been some good points brought up regarding the eliminating those entrances to the patios from the streets, especially now that we've seen a revised plan that shows a connecting street or connecting sidewalk to Sunnyside School Road. So I guess in regards to condition number 6, I would probably suggest that we eliminate the second sentence in there. that we don't have the path connecting to the back for the patios from the streets.
Do you want to just eliminate the second sentence or the entire condition? No?
Entire condition.
Any other comments, questions, motions?
Was that a motion?
That was not a motion, that was a comment.
That was a comment, so I don't know if...
I agree with your
I
comments.
agree with Mr. Trozen.
With that, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would recommend that we approve case number SPDR-7-13-4036, referencing the revised site development plan that's dated August 6th of 2000, August 16th of 2013.
Sixth.
August 6th.
6th. So much for listening to this. August 6th of 2013, and recommending approval with the exception of removing staff condition number 6, but then recommending approval of the remaining 18 conditions.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Site plan has been approved. Thank you. And that being said, we will now move on to any other business. Mr. Allen, do you have any announcements for us this evening or anything to let us know about?
I think we had a good update from consultant for the steering committee for the comp plan this evening. We'll be sending out updated, kind of a presentation that was given, PowerPoint slides, and then all the maps, just for get everybody up to speed in terms of where we're headed and where we've been. With that, and our next meeting will be September 23rd for that steering committee. And just stand by. In September, October, we'll be having a few public meetings, kind of neighborhood scale, to discuss kind of specific area plans in a few key areas in the city, kind of as pilot projects. So just watch for those emails and invitations in September and October.
Okay. Anyone else have any announcements or comments or anything they'd like to make this evening? If anybody is having problems with our new equipment here, our Apple expert is with us this evening, so I'm sure he'll stick around for a few minutes if we've got some questions. I know I've got a couple. And that being said, I guess I would be open for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Sorry, Bob.